Our top story today from thegatewaypundit.com. It looks like Tucker Carlson sat down with RFK Jr. and he dropped some massive bombshells that we're covering. We're talking about this story and so much more here on the Gateway Pundit's Week in Review. My name is Elijah Schaffer. This is the Week in Review. We're covering the top stories of the last 24 hours. Our top story today, RFK Jr. sat down with Tucker Carlson and discussed that there might actually be a link between the hepatitis B vaccine and autism. Check this out.
What you would do if you wanted to find the answer, which is to compare outcomes in a fully vaccinated group to health outcomes in an unvaccinated group. And CDC did that study in 1999. They brought in a team of scientists under a Belgian researcher named Thomas Verstraeten, and they looked at the data. They looked at children who had received the hepatitis vaccine within the first 30 days of life and compared those children to children who had received the vaccine later or not at all. And they found an 1,135% elevated risk of autism among the vaccinated children. And it shocked them. They kept the study secret, and they manipulated it through 5 different iterations to try to bury the link. And, you know, we know how they did it. They got rid of all the older children, essentially, and just had younger children who were too young to be diagnosed. And they stratified the data, and they did a lot of other tricks. And all of those studies were the subject of that kind of trickery.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of crazy because everyone always says there's no link between vaccines and autism. And maybe there isn't, right? Maybe there's no link between vaccines themselves and autism, but is there a link between other vaccines and autism, right? Is there a specific vaccine? Because in this conversation, more was spoken about. One of the things that I thought was crazy was that, RFK Jr. also states that, what's it called? The CDC buries vaccine injury data. Listen to this.
David Kessler, who was a very famous Surgeon General, who you remember, and many, many, many other people have said the VAERS system does not work and you need a new system. So in 2010, CDC designed a new system, and it was a machine counting system. The problem with VAERS, with the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, is that it's voluntary.
Yes.
And so the doctor has to, if he sees a vaccine injury, he's required to report it to VAERS. But there's no penalty if he doesn't. It takes him a half an hour to fill out the paperwork. So there's a big incentive for him not to do it. There's another incentive, though. He doesn't know if something is a vaccine injury. If you get a vaccine and then 4 years later, you come in with a food allergy, how do you know? Will any doctor in the world say that's a vaccine injury? Or seizure disorders? And the other thing, so they don't know, what to look for. They've never been taught that at medical school. There's no course on vaccine injury in medical school, in any medical school in this country. And then the other thing is he has a big emotional incentive because he told that mom to give that child that vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
And if the child has a seizure 3 weeks later and she comes back and she says, I think it might be the vaccine, a lot of doctors will say, no, that's normal for that age. And they're not going to call it into VAERS. So CDC designed a machine counting system that would do essentially a cluster analysis. They would look at the vaccine and then they would look at clusters of injuries that were unique or anomalous to that vaccine. And it was a very accurate system according to the group that designed it. It was a team led by a guy called Lazarus. And CDC paid for the whole thing, millions of dollars, and it was a long-term study. And they looked at one HMO, which was Harvard Pilgrim up in Massachusetts, and they did this machine counting system for Harvard Pilgrim, and then they compared what the machine counting system had gotten, had yielded and collected in terms of vaccine injuries. And they compared that to what VAERS had collected during the same period at Harvard Pilgrim. And they said that VAERS was capturing fewer than 1% of vaccine injuries. And they had a system now that would capture over 95%. And they were very proud, and they brought it to CDC and said, our system works, here's the data. But the data showed injuries in about 2.7% of vaccines.
Of all vaccines?
Yeah, all vaccines, about 2.7%.
Wow.
Which I think is something like 1 out of every 37 vaccines you get, there's an injury. And CDC saw that and said, we're not going to use the system. And they shelved it in 2010, and they've continued to use VAERS now for 22 years when they know that it doesn't work. When
Can you
they know
bring it back?
It was designed to fail.
Well, I'm just getting reports right now that apparently there's further development during this interview. I need to go find the clip now. Someone just put it in my bookmarks.
David Kessler,
Give me one moment here. But it turns out that there was more being said, and that Fauci actually received a pardon because he was involved in the creation of COVID-19, allegedly, according to RFK. Watch this.
He got immunity. Why did he need immunity? Why did he need a pardon in advance?
What do you think the answer is?
I would be speculating, but I think he was vulnerable. I think he had a lot of liability on creating coronavirus. He was funding precisely that research at the Wuhan lab.
Yep.
And he was giving them the technology. He was giving them, he gave them not only the technology, the precise technology for developing that pathogen.
It's crazy. I mean, like, they're dropping all this stuff now, but it always feels like they drop it when it's a little too late. And why do they drop this stuff here? Why don't they just have a press conference and tell the American people the truth? Why is it that we're always getting it on podcasts and whatnot? Look, if you like this story, make sure that you follow the Vigilant Fox as well on X and keep up to date with the Gateway Pundit. Usually we're covering stories we've already written about, but this is just too good to be true. You can watch more of the clips as well at the Tucker Carlson Network. This was a recent episode. I'm Elijah Schaffer. Don't forget to sign up for our mug club if you can. You get this amazing mug. And you support independent media and journalism while also supporting a great mug like this and your morning tea. Have a great rest of the week, and may God bless the United States of America. I'm signing out.